Hi, I'm Peter Sidwell. Welcome to my kitchen here at Simply Good Food TV and the Cookery School. I am going to make you a beautiful bread. I kind of had this idea that I'm going to make a really lovely focaccia bread, an Italian enriched bread, but I'm going to flavour it with the good old chestnut because it's nearly Christmas. And then I thought I've got some nice sweet California prunes. It's going to be absolutely beautiful. So, first thing we need to do, let's just shift this over here, lift that over. We'll make our dough, okay. So I have got some 00 pasta flour. We're going to go 500 grams, okay. That's it, good. And then we're going to go teaspoon of yeast, or if you've got a sachet, go 7 grams. There we go. Put that at one side. And then I've got a good teaspoon of salt at the other side. That'll do. And then I'm going to blend those together with my hand. Okay. Then I just want some water. Okay, so I've got 350 mils of water. I'm going to add sort of 2/3 of it really to start with, and then get your hand in the bowl, kind of like a claw motion, and just kind of roll it around the bowl like that, okay? So you can kind of see, and it comes together as a dough straight away. It's quite a tight dough, okay? Not a lot of water in there. We'll just mix that together, and what we've got is a ball of dough there. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is add the remaining water, and I'm also going to add a splash of olive oil. We'll add some more oil later on, and then we're just going to work that water in. And I always find the best way is to just kind of scrunch the dough in between your fingers, and eventually the dough kind of becomes looser because it's allowing more of the water in, so you end up with a nice wet dough. Okay, there we go. That's it. So we've got a nice wet focaccia dough now. This is going to be lovely. I always think the wetter the dough is, the more stretchy the bread is, the more air you'll get into it, and that means the more olive oil you can mop up with it. And that, to be honest, is why the Italians make bread, to mop up olive oil and tomatoes and things like that. Okay, so that's it. You can see that's quite wet, okay? And maybe just going to add a touch more flour to that, not a lot, just a little sprinkle, okay? So we'll just add a tiny little bit more flour in there, not loads, and then we'll just work that in. So you still want a nice, stretchy, elasticy dough, okay? Look at that, lovely, okay? And all we're going to do is just mix that dough a bit, okay? Really work it, kind of just sort of flicking it up like that, okay? We're not going to work this dough and knead it and knead it and knead it and knead it and stretch it. We're just going to bring it together like that, okay? So we're going to get some cling film. We've got our dough mixed. We're going to cover that, and that'll keep all the moisture in, and it'll kind of creates a more moist, warm environment that will allow the bread to prove up and double in size. Now you can either put this in somewhere warm if you want, and it'll do it quite quickly, maybe in an hour. It'll double up in size. Personally, I prefer to leave it out in room temperature and give it 2 or 3 hours if you can, and it'll just develop a little bit slower, which means a bit more flavour. Okay. Okay, this dough here has had about 2.5 hours proving, all right? So we'll just open it out. Straight away you can smell that fermented flavour and that aroma there, and then what you can see, hopefully, is look at that kind of stretch there of the dough, okay? So what we'll do is we will just grab, I use dough scrapers. They're not very expensive, you know, a couple of quid online, or if you go to Lakeland or somewhere like that, you can get them. They're easy. So So just scoop the dough out. Get every little bit out that you can, okay? There we go. Now, I'm actually going to knead and shape this bread in olive oil because I want more olive oil in this bread. And sometimes if you add flour to dough when you're kneading it, it kind of tightens it up a little bit. Whereas if you use good olive oil, you get flavour, but then you also get this kind of covering. So just add the oil, and then just the idea really is just to coat the bread in oil and just move it about, yeah, like that, so that it doesn't stick, okay? And this is lovely and aerated, this bread, and I don't want to lose too much of it. I don't mind knocking a little bit back, that's fine, but because you're doing it in oil, nothing's sticking. It's really, really easy to do. So we're just going to leave that dough there for a second. Now, I've got some chestnuts here, okay? I have just simply scored them. Now, if I show you here, look, all I did was a little cut there, a little cut there. I've roasted them in the oven, and then all I'm going to do is just peel them, okay? Now, normally I would roast these up again so they get nice and crunchy, but because they're going in the bread, I don't want them to burn, so I'm going to leave them like that. So that's all of them done. Get rid of the skins. I'm actually going to use this tin because I think it's going to be lovely for this. Okay, so let's pour a little olive oil into the bottom of the tin. Okay. And then I am going to take the bread, okay? And I know it's not really moving about much, which is good. I'm just going to spread it a little bit. I'm going to take a few of these chestnuts and just break them up into the bread. There we go, a few of those. That's it. And then I've got some lovely California prunes here, really sweet, really juicy. Just cut them up, just a few, because we're going to top this as well. There we go. So this is not your conventional, traditional Italian focaccia whatsoever. This is just kind of my way of making a nice kind of Christmassy one, really. So we're going to then fold that over, and that kind of encases some flavour, basically, which is what I want. And then just lift the dough, pop it straight into there, and then push it into the corners, okay? And because there's that oil in the bottom there as well, it's not going to go anywhere. This is just going to be lovely. It's just going to prove up. And then we've got these big chestnuts here. So I'm just going to plonk 1, 2, 3 there. 1, 2, 3. And then 1, 2, 3. So we've got 9 chestnuts in there. And then I've got some lovely California prunes. So I kind of, I wanted to see how I could get these prunes into recipes that taste absolutely amazing. And for me, kind of like fruits, nuts, bread, lovely, lovely, lovely ingredients together. And I just thought, wow, I wonder if this works. And my head's kind of going now thinking this is just going to be incredible with cheese. So maybe Boxing Day, when you've had all your turkey and your roast dinner the day before and all you want to do is kind of graze on lovely buffet stuff, get up early, make this bread, and then have it later on with all your pork pies and your cheeses and your Stiltons. This is going to be beautiful with Stilton. Really, really good. So with the prunes, push them right into the dough. Okay, like that. Because I don't want them to burn. And the same with the chestnuts. Just push them in. And what's going to happen is the dough is going to prove up around all these flavours and protect them so that the fruit and the nuts will move down and the bread will move up, so that then when you cut into it, you get these lovely, like the chestnuts at the top are going to go all nice and crunchy and they'll be a little bit creamy underneath, and then you're going to get these nuggets of fruit from the prunes. I think this is just going to be an absolutely fab bread. Now I'm just going to get some rosemary from the garden. Okay, so let's just pick off this rosemary, and I am just going to put it straight onto the bread and just kind of push it in. Rosemary for me is just lovely on a focaccia. It just gives an amazing fragrance. And when you are baking this bread, the rosemary just smells amazing. It really, really does. Okay, so we just push that in, push that in. Do you know what? Just strip the lot off. I love rosemary. I think it just adds so much to this bread. Okay, so there we go. Right, a little bit more olive. Okay, a little bit more olive oil. So we'll just drizzle that on. Make sure all those chestnuts have got the oil on because we want them to go super crunchy. And then I've got some sea salt here. I'm just going to sea salt the top because you want that kind of savoury saltiness. Use, you know, Maldon sea salt or, you know, rock salt because you want the chunks of salt. You don't want table salt and just scatter it all over. You want that lovely texture. Right. This bread will take about 30 minutes to prove up until it doubles in size, and then I'm going to put it straight into the oven, 200 degrees, and I'm going to bake that for about 20 minutes. And then once it comes out of the oven, let it rest just for about 10 minutes, and what will happen is it'll shrink back just a couple of mil, and that'll allow it just to slip out. But there's oil around the edges on the top. It is not going to stick to this kind of tin. It's going to be absolutely perfect. I'll just wipe that excess off. So if I pop that on there. Good. Right, okay, so this focaccia has been proving up really, really beautifully now. It's kind of almost double in size. I'm just going to push those chestnuts back in and the California prunes to make sure that they stay lovely and sweet. If they're protruding out, they run the risk of burning, okay? So I'm just going to push those in, and a few little sort of, I like to put little holes, just using my finger, just push those little reservoirs almost in the bottom of the bread so that the flavour kind of seeps in. And then I have preheated the oven, so this oven is on the baking setting, the bread baking setting, 220 degrees, so nice and hot, okay? And we're going to pop that straight in the oven. But what I'm also going to do is I like to add a little bit of water in, okay? So I'm just going to grab just a little dish, nothing massive, and a little bit of water. Okay, I think it makes all the difference, okay? So, take the focaccia straight in the oven, okay? And then this water into the bottom there. You can hear that? Look at all that steam there. That is going to help the bread just kind of pop up, rise, and make a really beautiful focaccia that, for me, is absolutely going on my cheese board on Boxing Day for all the family to kind of just tuck into. Focaccia's had about 20 minutes in the oven, 220 degrees. Oh wow, look at that. This is looking beautiful. Now, what's happened is the kind of chestnuts have dropped down a little bit, the tops have gone nice and crusty. The prunes are just really lovely and sweet, and they've kind of plumped up as well. The bread is lovely and golden. Look, let's just try and lift this straight out. I'm pretty confident that this bread will come out nice and easy, okay, because of all the oil that's around it. There we go, just scoop underneath there, that's it. Right, let's lift this out. There we go, look at that. That, to me, looks pretty darn good. I'm just going to finish it with that final little drizzle of oil, because I think it just, when it's warm out of the oven, it kind of just soaks up all flavour and it just gives it a lovely shine. I mean, look, oh, that looks absolutely fantastic.